Welcome to Waypoint Connect. It's so great that you guys have joined us for another episode. And our topic, apart from marriage for this month, is also leadership. So it's my privilege and pleasure to welcome Jacques Whittle to our episode. Jacques, so great that you're here with us.
Thank you so much. I'm really going to enjoy our chat.
Now, a lot of people know you, but some people might not. Do you just quickly want to give a brief overview of where you're from and what you do?
I'm an Eastern Cape boykie, as you know. Grew up in Addo, one of a big family. Still don't understand why so many, because I think my mom and dad must have been from heaven. But yeah, and then because of circumstances, I went and studied industrial engineering. Always been inclined technically with my dad, with his business, and that led me on to a different journey than what I thought I wanted to do. Currently, yeah, enjoying life and married with Jacqueline, and we have 3 kids. That's not kids anymore. They're starting to become young adults, and that's scary for a dad, especially with the girls. And if I say this, Johan will most probably give me a hard time, but I don't mind kicking the boy out. He needs to.
But it's a bit tough kicking the girls out.
But it's a tough thing to kick your girls out. So, yeah.
All right. And when we talk about leadership, what's your background in terms of leadership?
Yeah, I think, I can maybe just give a bit of a testimony on that. I've been studying leadership. I've been focusing around leadership since, at school I started being confronted, even in primary school. And I do believe God put something in every person to fulfill the fullness of his body. So for me, even in primary school, I had this sense of responsibility, leading. And although you make a lot of mistakes because you don't know what it is, your journey in a way starts defining the concept. So the principles of what leadership is and what it is not, and what managing or controlling means is radically different. But in a way, you walk a journey because of your character, and your character are confronted with things in life, and some of that relates to persecution, or friends not engaging you properly, or you tend to link with people that's way older than you. So, and trying to make sense of those things was one of my toughest battles in my life, because I couldn't understand why people didn't always brought me into the cliques. Or into the conversations, but my nature was also not always comfortable in spaces. So I do believe that it starts with a calling, it starts with a journey, and yes, as a young person growing up, you tend to listen to the things of the world, and you tend to see all of those things as character flaws in yourself. But that made me come to this point in my life where, that I've just seen, and since God really changed my life, I could see his hand in preparing me for things that was written up by him, that was his will, his purposes. So for me, leadership, in the true sense of leadership, is absolutely a gift and a calling. And yeah, maybe we can explain that later, but that's how I see it.
I think also in terms of what you shared, if I asked your average person, what's your exposure to leadership, background to leadership, they would have gone into like a mini CV, leading a company this big, growing a company from there to there. Your answer is it comes down to life experience and a journey, a relationship with God, and that's the defining thing for you. So do you want to expand on that and just share, where does leadership start?
I've been involved and been gracefully involved with so many businesses where I had to go in and help fix that business. And what I've learned in my own and my story is it's about character. So my trials and my persecution and my things that I've gone through related to a character conflict. It didn't relate to a position.
Yeah.
So leadership is absolutely linked to a character, your nature. And it's a born thing for me. And if I explain the difference between how the world views leadership versus, versus what I experience in my relationship with God, it's completely different. And the only criteria for me that started to make sense when the Holy Spirit revealed more to me and telling me how God sees me and showing me that He is the potter and I'm the clay and He's built me for a purpose. The more you settle into His view and His nature, the more you start making peace about what leadership actually means. So leadership is not a position. Leadership is not, oh, I'm the boss of a company or, that's not the issue of leadership. In fact, a true leader will always put himself last. He will care for his community or his people more than he would do for himself. Yeah. There's a servantness in leadership that it doesn't define through position. In the world, being president or being the CEO of a company is deemed to be a leader. You can have the worst person in a position, but he's not a leader by nature. And I think if we can refer to the world, a person to me that really brought out a complete contradiction to what you would have deemed leadership to be was Nelson Mandela. He was not this go-getter, shake the nation, do things. It was not him. But he won the hearts of people. He was willing to take up the burden for forgiveness and reconciliation in his own character that had all the reasons not to, but through that showed true leadership. So for me, I absolutely believe that if you really want to understand leadership, for me, it's the manifestation of the nature, character of Christ through the Holy Spirit, through us, into a calling which God's given us that provides direction, passion, and energy and conviction into something greater than yourself. That to me is leadership. Yes. It's not about managing people or managing things. And that's what I hold on to. And now I'm not saying this is right or wrong. I'm just saying this is where I'm at in my life, because I can tell you a lot of stories of confrontations I had to go through where I was rejected by friends, rejected by people, didn't feel welcome in circles, and I had to work through that. Fortunately, God gave me an angel to be married with, and she accepted me the way I am, and through the journey of life and through some serious mistakes in my life, I started to follow Him. And with following Him, the journey of the last 8 years, it was a step of faith, of obedience, desiring to be obedient and be the vessel in His hands, and yet here we sit. We would never have been able to say, we did that. That definitely. To me is what it's about.
So it's that my leadership is not because it says so on my business card. It's because of who I am and my relationship with Christ. And that's also why you can't set it aside. Now I follow Jesus. Now I lead with worldly principles, irrespective of what my relationship with God would define that to look like and be like.
Yeah, I think... I think in the following, this is quite important. We tend to try and define leadership in this realm. We tend to define leadership, even in church, in an organizational model. But Jesus actually applied leadership by breaking down that organizational model and brought the function of the body, which means in this function of the body, there is gifts that's been released through Him, through the Holy Spirit, for the purposes of God's glory. And if I define leadership in an organizational model, I will miss the person in the model.
Yeah.
Because Jesus was all about people. Jesus was all about the unifying and reconciling us with the Father and with one another. So how am I a leader? Yes, leadership comes with a game plan. Leadership comes with a vision. Leadership comes with, and in this world, you are in warfare. You love people, but you still need to give people a game plan. You need to say, this is a rugby game. This is, you're going to play with a rugby ball, and here's the lines. This is the rules of the game. Why? Because people are all on a journey. But are you as a person, not leader, as a person, willing to embark a journey with people? That's leadership.
Yeah.
That comes with a commitment. It comes with a sacrifice. It comes with placing the
Others.
you beside you, before you.
Yeah.
And I think if we had that, more of that, I believe heaven will touch earth the way we are called for it to be.
Yeah.
The brokenness of this world isn't because of people. The brokenness of this world is because leaders apply a wrong model onto people. But our calling is to release everyone into the fullness of what God created in them.
Yeah.
And yes, part of our journey is to be the seed in His hands so that others could find life and start living with this correct framework of how God really sees them and who God really is. You know, we're doing that series now with the leaders around knowing God. Yes, the more I work through it, the more I realize how little I do know about God. So I think that's the exciting journey, you know, and that to me is what leadership is about. Yes, it's lonely. It really is lonely because you tend to and have to make decisions where not everybody is always in the same stage of their journey. So when people look at the leader, they look at it from the perspective of where they are in their journey, and then they define right and wrong. But it's not about right and wrong. It's about the journey. And to what extent people are willing to follow you and work with you, and you willing to serve into this journey that you believe God has placed you on. That gives you an eternal perspective. It doesn't give you a purpose for this life. It gives you an eternal perspective and frees you from the things of this life.
The constraints here.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Jacques, thank you very much for joining us, for sharing, which is definitely challenging for most of us. I think it challenged the average listener looking at this from a topic of leadership, because in essence what you shared with us is that before I lead other people, I need to ask myself the question, how am I allowing God to lead me? And am I leading from that space of being led by Him? Which is a completely different perspective if you'd ask your average person involved in leadership as to a key component of being successful within that space. So I hope that this has helped you in your leadership journey, moving forward and achieving great things in life. So tune in next week, and remember, have a great week.